What's going on, guys? BrokenMachine here. Do hope you guys are all doing well today. So for the past year and a half or so, I've actually been playing Battlefield 6 behind the scenes, under NDA, of course. It's been a massive secret to keep from you guys, especially during live streams when you guys are talking about various things, about the next Battlefield, gameplay, maps, leaks, all this mad stuff. And I'm just sat there thinking, yep, I played that, I've seen that, I've done that, that's not in the game, that's awesome, and couldn't talk about it. I could not talk about anything, and it's been killing me inside. You know, I've seen the excitement from you guys about the next game, and, you know, now we can finally talk about it and show it. So we're going to be looking at my experiences, discussing what I can talk about here, and yeah, just a bit of a casual conversation today. So yeah, sit back, relax, and let's get into it. So first, though, I do just want to say a big thank you to the individuals and teams who invited me. It's been an amazing experience. Honestly, I've been to many offices around the world, many studios, and yeah, had a really good time. I hope my feedback was valuable. It was great to give. I hope I gave enough of it. Sometimes I felt like I didn't, and I wish I gave more written feedback. But the conversations we had while actually playing the game, honestly, for me, they were so valuable. I hope they were for the team as well. You know, being sat there playing Cairo and checking out the guns, seeing how the gunplay works, especially having these gameplay moments with the actual weapons team right next to me. I mean, you can't ask for anything better. It was just awesome, you know. It was such a cool experience, and yeah, I very much appreciate it. And of course, I've got to say a big thank you to my subs, fans, and just everyone who watches me all these years. You know, it's been a long journey. We started off with Bad Company 2, BF3, BF4, bit of a hobby with YouTube, and, you know, one-man army montages popped off, and then BF1 came along, went full-time with that, BF5 full-time, 2042, still streaming, still having fun, Battlefield 1 on Sundays, and yeah, honestly, I'm still here full-time 9 years later. It's been a dream. So everyone in chat, everyone in comments, big thank you to you guys, genuinely. You know, it's I don't ask for any more. It's been just amazing, truly. So anyway, enough of that, let's get into it. My experiences being behind the scenes. So I was a part of the original community council, which was a small select number of individuals who got to play test the game early, give feedback, have discussions with the teams, talk about things, their likes, dislikes, all that good stuff. Basically, just check out the game and give feedback. And I've got to say, the passion with the teams is massive. It is absolutely massive. You know, like I said, I've had conversations while playing the game. You can really see with the teams, they want the game to do well. They want it to be good. They want people to have fun. They want it to be balanced and all this good stuff. And it's very obvious, you know, in their passion. Especially with Vince Zampella and Byron. Got to speak to them briefly at Ripple Effect in LA, and you know, that was pretty cool. You know, Vince Zampella, old school guy, pretty awesome. I'm honestly glad he's at the top, really just, you know, taking this game in the direction it is, and yeah, I'm glad he's on the team, honestly. But yeah, you could see it in the conversations with them. They wanted this game to be absolutely massive. They wanted it to full send and really go for it. And, you know, right at the beginning, I got to see this little teaser of what the game they hoped it would be and where they hoped it would go. And seeing the multiplayer reveal trailer, that is exactly the vision. It is just absolutely full send, and it's just going somewhere, and you can feel it. You know, you can really feel it playing this game. It is genuinely one of the best Battlefield 6 experiences. One of the best Battlefield experiences I've had. You know, it's playing Cairo for one of the first times. You know, I said to David, I was like, this is some of the best Battlefield I've played in years. You know, I've enjoyed BF1 and BF5 and such on the stream, but that was one of those, I was like, this is BF3/BF4 meets BF1, and there is a taste of Bad Company 2 here. and it felt so good. I know years ago I made this video, Battlefield 6 Dice Please, and this game feels very much kind of what I was asking for, you know, the gunplay of BF4, awesome maps of BF3, a mixture of BF1's atmosphere and the modes that took the game and the series forward, you know, like Operations and Breakthrough, and it's got a mixture of Bad Company 2 in there as well. Dare I say BF5 as well, which I feel in the more close quarter sections, I would say. So, talking of maps, Manhattan Bridge, you get a glimpse of this in the trailer. I have played it, and I think this might be one of my favorite maps. There is a lot of verticality in places, and initially I was like, oh no, verticality could be dangerous. They got to get it right. You know, you get too much verticality and it can be a little bit annoying. But from what I've played, this map could be one of my favorites. You can get on the rooftops, you can flank around in so many places. It was an urban map that was just, oh my god, this is an evolution of maybe Rotterdam, some similar moments to that map. I was in a building and I was getting pushed up the stairs, I had to flank around another set of stairs, behind a counter somewhere, going on a really amazing streak that I wish I could have recorded. I'm sure it's going to look absolutely amazing. I mean, graphics wise, this game is it is really polished. This game is looking good. It's got that kind of like BF3, BF4 kind of feel, and a mixture of like Bad Company 2 in the visuals, I feel. And the audio as well, that is just incredible. But yeah, Manhattan Bridge, I think this map is going to be quite popular. Definitely is. Yeah, we've not talked about the campaign. Did I talk about the campaign? This has been a bit longer video than I expected. Sorry, I'm getting quite passionate about it. I just want to get it out. So the campaign, what you see in the trailer, I have seen, I have played. Lots of only in Battlefield moments. I think you are going to enjoy it. Yeah, it looks beautiful. It looks absolutely stunning. And there is some really cool sections there, as you can see in the trailer. I'm not going to go too much into detail about it, much more than that, but I have played through the campaign, a good chunk of it, and it is, yeah, it's a Battlefield experience. Of course, there is Operation Firestorm, which introduces some of the new tactical destruction, which I think is going to really change up the game, in particular these old fan favorites, which we might actually see a return of other ones, as was discussed in the article that's going to be on screen right now. Personally, I would like Metro, and the reason is that on Operation Firestorm, you can actually see the roof cave in. So in this game, the tactical destruction, you know, the ceilings can come in, the floors can come in, and you know, it opens up new routes and closes off new routes in many ways. Obviously, you still got the pathways in certain sections, have you seen, as you might have seen on some of my gameplay. But, you know, imagine Operation Metro, and now, I don't know, imagine if they had a moving train, that would be sick. You know, take out the ceiling, train falls down, that could be amazing. Please do that. But no, what I would say is, you know, imagine, you know, Metro, or even Operation Locker, we've been stuck there on the escalators, on the stairs, we can't get a flank in, and it's irritating, spawn trap, and we're just frustrated as hell, right? We've all been there in those situations. Imagine you can take out the floor and then there's a new route. You know, in the BF4 remake of Operation Metro, you could take out certain sections of the roof, right? And it will come scattering down and take people out. Imagine, you know, that opens up a new route. Could be amazing. Genuinely could. I hope they do some more things with that. Tactical destruction as a whole, you know, it looks beautiful, and I think they've got it quite right. As far as I'm aware, there is going to be like a dial, like not on our side, but their side. You know, if the destruction, you know, is a little bit too much like paper and the buildings coming out down too fast, I think they can adjust it. You get the rubble in certain sections, so that opens up how certain areas, particularly in Domination, are going to play. And talking of Domination, Domination Iberian Offensive, I think you're going to enjoy that. That is a pretty awesome map for Domination. It really shows the kind of close quarters gunplay and gameplay that can go on in this game, which for me is looking pretty awesome. Talking of close quarters, on this map you'll see lots of that, and I was watching Enders and he was watching me, and he noticed that I noticed kind of early potential meta Maybe meta's not the right way, but a potential way to play the game. And I was hip fire peeking a lot of corners. And the reason is for this, in the gameplay that you see, it's like a junction. So there's multiple routes, people can sit in the building on the left side, and there's a plant part and other objects that are kind of blocking lines of sight. I picked this up early on in the gameplay sessions. I was like, wow, some of these corners, you've really got to check your angles, and I really like that. So, for example, on this corner here in the gameplay, I jumped the corner, and on the right side, there's a plant pot, and that is covering up line of sight to the right, which is where the other enemies on the, I think it's the C flag, they can spawn there. So if they're looking that way, that conceals you, which I really like. There's loads of situations where there is lots of cover, which, we've talked about it in feedback, and there needs to be a decent amount of cover. But there is moments where you can actually conceal yourself, which opens up to me some exciting new possibilities. So initially on a map, you might see certain areas where you can conceal yourself, but over time these things are probably going to get destroyed, and then that opens up the map a little bit more. That might speed up sections, it might slow down sections, which could be very interesting, especially for the more competitive scene in the domination kind of maps and moments, those close quarter moments. I think there's a lot of potential there, and I hope they experiment with that more on other maps, and it is the case that they are doing that. We're talking of meta. I think there's going to be lots of different ways to play this game, which I'm really loving, really loving, especially when it comes to the tactical destruction. That's going to open up so many ways to play the game. Hope they take it further. I'm pretty sure they will take it further, especially going forward, and upcoming content. There is so much they could do with that, especially if they are going with some of these older maps. There is such potential there. So talking of weapons, there is a selection of weapons in the beta. As you've seen in the trailer, there is hints of more, and I think there'll be a nice selection of weapons on release. So I'm looking forward to that. The gunplay feels pretty solid. Again, we gave feedback on those behind the scenes, and yeah, I think the gunplay is shaping up pretty good. There is a little bit of recoil in the game. I think it could be a little bit more. If you watch some of my gameplay, I'll put it up on screen right now, and you can actually see the recoil. A lot of people were saying, oh, there's no recoil on the stream. There was, but you got to remember, a lot of us, we play games a lot. We know our settings, and we can control the recoil fairly well for the most part. So on stream, especially on a small screen, it's going to look less, but it is there, and attachments do bring it down in certain ways. Me personally, I think I would just have a little bit more, not too much. Talking of gunplay, sweet spot, should that be in the game? I can live with it. Personally, I'd rather have it like, 5 sniping, it's just a headshot only. Or maybe have it so if you are aggressive sniping, it can be a one shot to the chest up to X amount of meters. I would have it that way, so you can be an aggressive sniper or recon, but there's limits. Sweet spot, from my impression, it seemed that the idea behind that was to try to get people to fight within a certain range, or to PTFO more as recon. The weapons, yeah, they're looking nice, feeling good, especially on controller as well. Gave controller feedback. I think for the most part, the game feels pretty good on controller. Lots of settings in there, dead zone, curves, all that good stuff. Perhaps they might need a few more options, but I think it's looking pretty good. So right now, you can customize your controller with the keybinds and change the triggers. I did hope and did ask that there would be, just flip the triggers, but I don't think that's in the beta. I hope it's in release. That would be amazing. So yeah, controller feels really good, which is really important. And of course, they are doing a more cross-play preferred option, so you can enable that, and it will try to put you, if you're on console, with other console people. And of course, there is this Empire State City map, so that's an interesting one. I think it might need some balance patches, judging from what we saw on the stream there. Maybe it was just a sweaty lobby, but that map is pretty cool. I love the destruction there, and then that changes up how the objectives are played, so you can't go over the bridge to the other side. You got to go on the floor there, on the grounds, across the street. So, I mean, that's what I mean with the potential there. You could use that for so many things in newer maps in the future. I really hope they continue having a play with the tactical destruction. Take it further. Maybe maybe it'd be really cool if there was a section of the map that isn't shown on the minimap until someone destroys something, and then like a underground section comes alive. Something like that. That would be awesome. And of course, there is escalation. So that's two teams fight to control strategic points, and then as teams expand control, fewer points remain, eventually resulting in both teams fighting over the lasting remaining points. This could be an interesting one. It's an interesting take on the, dare I say, Conquest formula. I think it could be pretty hectic. Cairo is definitely a map that is designed for this, I feel, especially with that long middle section and the flanks up in the buildings. That's gonna be an interesting one. I think this is where you're gonna see more of the tactical destruction come into play. Personally, I did not give a lot of feedback about vehicles behind the scenes. You know, I'm not really a vehicle player anymore. I love infantry. And, you know, this game is shaping up to be incredible for infantry. I think there's so much different metas that can go on, different ways to play the game. I saw some streamers really ADSing quite a lot. Others were just rushing around. I think there's going to be various ways to play this game, and that should keep it fresh, especially when new maps arrive and you got to learn how to play them. Some people will adjust quickly and their playstyle will suit, others might not, and they have to you know, adapt a little bit, which is really nice to see in my opinion. It does need, you know, different metas. Don't we agree? You know, we need different ways to play. I think that is what keeps FPS and particularly Battlefield fresh. Of course, they teased Battle Royale in the live stream there. That looks amazing. The return of Firestorm. Will they call it Firestorm? Who knows? But that is looking pretty nice from that little snippet there. Did you see the golf carts? Long-time fans of the series may recognize that. And of course, Portal, which can't wait to see that in action. Judging from that trailer, there is so much potential there. I really hope they just absolutely full send it. Stick a ton of stuff in there, let you have a lot of fun with it. You know, we could do some really cool community stuff with that, so I can't wait for that. So yeah, I'm excited about that. There is so much potential with that. I cannot wait to see more and talk more. You know, that I've got some ideas. I want to talk about those. So yeah, let's talk about those on release and see where it is. So Conquest, obviously, we played a lot of that behind the scenes, gave a lot of feedback. I think it's mostly running pretty well. It's as an infantry player mainly, it feels pretty solid. I would say on par with BF3's Conquest, especially Grand Bazaar. You know, Cairo is feeling very much like that, or Sen Crossing. These old school maps, should they come back, do let me know down below. But Conquest, you know, from playing behind the scenes, it's running pretty solid. Definitely don't really have any major issues. Capture sections seem to be done really well, and I love you can turn off the outline now. So if you're a seasoned veteran, you know, you play the game a lot, you know where the flags are, you can change the HUD and get rid of that completely now, which is awesome. Yeah, talking of infantry and vehicle interplay, we spoke quite a lot about that behind the scenes, and as an infantry player, that's really important to me. You know, don't want to be on a map where a vehicle is just dominating all the time. Don't get me wrong, vehicles should be powerful, but at the same time, I think we need to consider what kind of gameplay the infantry is playing and what kind of gameplay vehicles are playing, and try to strike a balance. You know, sometimes it feels like, I mean, let's take an example like Monty Grappa on Battlefield 1. If you play that on Operations or Breakthrough, as you may know it, sometimes it can kind of feel like you're trying to jump on a flag, you're checking corners, trying to read the spawns, trying to read what's going on around you, and then the plane comes flying over, drops bombs, and then you adjust, and then you try and do the same. You see the plane, you're like, okay, I think we can get it now. You get close to the objective, and boom, the plane is back. And often it can lead to one-sided games, unbalanced games. Spawn traps is an issue from time to time, and I'm not saying this happens all the time, and I'm not saying every vehicle player is just dominating all the time. All I hope is there is a consideration for both the infantry game and the vehicle game. What game is each playing? Is it balanced? Is it working? Is the vehicle just too powerful? Or is the player in the vehicle just so good, they're just dominating because they're good? If that's the case, fine. But sometimes, you know, I think we need to keep the vehicles in check. That's just my opinion, and you know, I think it makes for a better experience. You know, Battlefield, I would say, plays best when it's a tug of war, when it's one-sided, whether that's a whole team dominating and spawn trapping all the time, or vehicles are just annoying all the time, bombing, blowing everything up. You know, that's when Battlefield suffers. And don't get me wrong, you should have close games and pulling them back, you know, like a tug of war. But when it's just a clear, you know, one-sided, it's gone. I think we need to have a discussion about that. But yeah, so those are some of the things that I've talked about and we've discussed behind the scenes. So for now, it's feeling pretty good. The vehicles don't feel annoying. I hope it stays that way. But changes do need to be made from the beta. I'm not saying they don't. I'm sure many vehicle comments down below will say that. And that's great. Get the feedback out there. We need it. You know, we need to make a good game. You know, some people think I hate vehicles. I don't. They're a part of awesome moments. I'll put some on screen right now. We need them, but they need to be considered, is what I'm trying to say. Breakthrough, I've got some issues with Breakthrough. On that stream we did, I was a little bit concerned with some areas. It felt like a bit too choke pointy, and in the playtest, it didn't feel like that. And I do believe it's partially because it's a streamer lobby. Everyone's trying to get clips. Everyone's trying to stay alive so they're not dying all the time. And it got a bit too sweaty. But I'm sure that's not going to be the case in the full release. You got to remember, some of these reveal events for any game, they don't always play exactly how a normal game would play. I think you need to keep that in mind. For the most part, I think Breakthrough is going to be a pretty good mode. And, you know, in the past, you know, I've talked about St. Quentin Scar, Kaiserslautern on BF1. I think that's a great example of a map that plays reasonably well in Breakthrough. You've got two objectives that interact with each other in many ways, but they are self-contained. And just like the best maps in Rush in BF3, and the best kind of maps in like modes like S&D in other games, or Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike is a good example. You know, you've got two objectives. If you rush A, that affects how the team comes from B, what connectors, what routes they can take, and vice versa if you rush B instead. And I think if you get operations right, it needs to kind of take inspiration from CS. Not in the sense of a super competitive mode, but in the sense of the flow and the way it can play. CS is just, especially on maps like Dust, you know, it's a perfect example of how to potentially balance these kind of double or two objective type of modes. And so I have mentioned that before, and you know, I'm not saying I want Battlefield to be Counter-Strike. I'm just saying the way they flow needs to be looked at. Some of the best maps, St. Quentin Scar, Kaiserslautern, Amiens, it's that push and pull. They push, we push. Tug of war, back and forth action, the flanks, the close games. Genuinely think we need modes like Operations and Breakthrough to do well. They were in BF1 and then BF5. I think BF1 did it better. One of my concerns and criticisms was with BF5 was that they had grand operations, which was just completely different. It was the wrong way to go about it. You know, they should have had Breakthrough with all the fortifications set up, and then you push the map and have several rounds, several battalions. That's the way it should have been, and it wasn't quite like that. And I think they messed up there. Yeah, I do think they messed up there. For me, I genuinely believe there is a need for more of a player's story in a video game, which I think is why Battle Royale is so popular. It's me jumping in, having my own round. Everything I do affects how it affects your adventure across the round. It affects where you go, what you can do, and the outcome. And you know, I see games like Halo, Call of Duty, Quake, Unreal Tournament kind of sadly losing player numbers. And I know that they're quite different games, but they are arena shooters. And I do wonder if this kind of smaller player kind of modes are kind of dying off because people want a more you know, self-driven kind of mode or adventure, you know, like Battle Royale. I think that needs to be the case with like Operations. They need to really see what makes those modes work and full send it. I genuinely think Battlefield 6, if they get Operations or Breakthrough, if you want to call it right, it could be amazing. You know, some of the best clips and moments and games I've had have been on Operations. Anyway, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent there, but I do think Battlefield, you know, there's lots of talk in the community about, oh, I wish they would focus on multiplayer. And I'm not saying now, but there has been in the past. You know, they shouldn't put resources on this or that. And I think FPS games these days actually need a multiple array of experiences to survive. So we've got multiplayer, Battle Royale, and you know, the campaign as well, of course. Talking of campaign, we'll get that into a moment. But yeah, anyway, I think you know, they're doing a good job there, and full send operations. Yes, Easter eggs. You know, the Phantom Edition of the game, is it, for pre-order? That's an interesting title. So yes, there was something in the reveal, and I don't believe anyone picked up on it. And it's yeah, it's an interesting one. I did have a few conversations with people in the stream event about that. But yeah, it's so yeah, it's been a wild journey, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I know I probably waffled on about it. So yeah, hopefully you've learned some stuff today, my perspective on Battlefield, some of the feedback I've given. Obviously, I can't go into too much detail about everything, but I hope you can kind of see my perspective. And of course, in that room, or those rooms, sorry, there was very different perspectives. So yeah, it was good to see. You know, sometimes you know, we play these games, we think, oh, it should be like this or it should be like that, and it's nice to see other people's perspectives, have a good discussion about them, especially with the designers of the game. And yeah, full send and see how the game is coming along, and changes, updates, things that come and go. It's, you know, it's been a good one, really insightful. I'd love to be invited back again. So yeah, more to come. I'm very sure Battlefield 6 is releasing very soon, October the 10th. So yeah, if I've missed anything, you want to know about anything more that I can talk about, do be sure to drop a comment down below and I'll try and get back to you. But now I am very excited about Battlefield 6 and genuinely think this team is really, really passionate about this. And I think it shows. It really shows in the trailers. It shows in the gameplay. There's a lot of detail. There's much more that's going to get uncovered over time. And yeah, only in Battlefield. Battlefield is back. Yeah, hope you enjoyed this video, guys. I'll see you soon. Take it easy. Catch you later.